Thank you so much, Mustafa. And thank you to everyone today for inviting me, Dr. Mehta for reaching out and having me be a part of witnessing such a wonderful conference and the closing ceremony, which has been extremely well organized. As someone who has done my fair share of Model UN conferences and the ones online now as well because of the pandemic, I know just how difficult it is to organize these conferences over virtual platforms and keep them engaging. So congratulations on completing the conference successfully. I'm going to tell you a little bit today about my journey because 7 years ago, without revealing my age or anything, but 7 years ago, I was sitting right where many of you are today, potentially at your first Model UN conference. I had made some mistakes, but that was okay. I had made many friends, some frenemies, but that was also okay. But if I could go back 7 years and tell young Nudhara in year 8 something, it would be that at the closing ceremony, and I'm going to tell you all of this because they haven't quite figured out the time machine yet, but you have done something very important today. You have engaged politically in the discussions of the world. And I can't tell you just how important that is. You made a difference because you took a moment in your committees, whether that be for the entire committee session, whether that be for a couple minutes where you're able to follow what was going on. Each of you genuinely cared about the problems of your world, the world you will be given to lead in a couple years' time. Whether you were talking about women's rights in Afghanistan, education for all, access to vaccines, or reducing global warming, you all had a conversation about what's going on in the world. For a moment, you realize that the world is so much bigger than our schools and our classrooms and which university you want to get into. There are problems out there. And whilst we debate them as agendas and Model UN study guides, these are the lives of many people. And I want you to just take a moment to reflect on that whilst we can talk about empowerment of women and girls in Afghanistan, whilst we talk about reducing global warming, there are people's lives who every day get affected by these problems. So if there's one thing that I can tell you to take away from your experiences in Model UN, in conferences like this, is to not stop the conversation when we get off of this Zoom call, is to stay politically engaged, is to read the news. We spend so much time on social media scrolling through your Instagram or your Facebook. And I've actually been told Facebook isn't a thing anymore and that I come from an older generation, but Instagram or your TikToks, and you don't really take the time to filter information, to understand where the sources of this information come from. Am I reading something that has another agenda? Am I reading the news, or am I just scrolling through ad after ad on a social media bubble? So just take the time for a minute to not only subscribe to your Netflix and your Amazon Primes, but subscribe to The Economist, subscribe to The New Yorker, subscribe to India Today, read about what's going on in the world, because a politically engaged youth, a youth that is aware of the world around them, is the most crucial thing for our future. I'm going to fast forward a little bit. So from my first Model UN conference, I completed my degree in philosophy, politics, and economics. Through friends that I met in Model UN, I was able to develop my network and gain several experiences working with MPs from around the world, working with the World Federation of UN Associations, where I trained young people to be more politically engaged in the world. And now with UNDP on their Sustainable Development Goals integration team at the New York headquarters. And these are now the problems, your agendas about women empowerment, about global warming, education, and access to all. That's my job. So I work on creating policies for country offices, coordinating knowledge management across these country offices, and engaging with the conversations with governments, with officials in different governments, and accelerating the sustainable development goals that we set for 2030. Because we had just less than 10 years to sort out the goals, even in 2019. But with the global pandemic, this has accelerated our need and our pressing need to achieve the 2030 agenda so much more. And so now more than ever, it is important for young people to be involved. I'm not saying, you know, when you're done with high school, you should probably think about working, you know, as part of what the UN is trying to achieve. I'm saying right now, there is, you know, Greta Thunberg barely had finished high school, was still in high school when she created a global revolution. You have youth envoys and young people from around the world engaging in conversations at the UN. We recently had the Intergenerational Forum at the UN. I was talking to someone who had started an anti-modern slavery movement at the age of 16 and is now working as the youth representative of UN Women. Many of my friends are the climate activists, youth advisors across the United Nations board. And so it's not about age, it's about how much you care about the world. And with the Our Common Agenda report, which I'll drop a link in the chat, that the Secretary General recently released, there is now going to be a youth office dedicated to young people like you who want to be a part of the conversation, to facilitate your ability to be a part of the conversation. So I'm going to leave you with 5 things as just some friendly advice from someone, a friend who was formerly in your position and is now trying to make a difference as one small voice in an ocean of voices. 5 things. The first is ask questions, because if you're asking questions, you're being curious and you're not accepting reality for what it is. Ask questions about what's going on in the world. Ask questions about what's going on at school, what's going on in your country. So much is going on in India that we could be asking questions about. The second thing is, and this is simple, follow not just celebrities on social media, but icons of governance. Follow the UN Youth Envoy, follow your ministers on social media, figure out what they're doing, because social media has become an ability for people to communicate directly with the masses. So don't just, you know, I mean, by all means, you can follow Shah Rukh Khan if you really want to, but like, follow other people on social media, your political icons, and engage with the conversations that they're trying to have. Figure out what's going on in the world. The third thing, have an elevator pitch ready. This is something that I tell everyone that I meet, but you will always be asked the question, who are you? Whether that be by your college interviewers who are interviewing you for universities. The first thing anyone will ever say at an interview is, tell us a little bit about yourself. Whether it be when you're trying to network and meet new people, whether it be meeting people in introductions of Model UN conferences, you'll go around the room and people will say, so introduce yourself. Have a 30-second speech ready about who you are, what you stand for, and what your interests are. This will always help you in life because you'll know exactly what your mission is. You'll know exactly what your vision is, and just practice the pitch. Practice this speech, this 30 or 60-second speech that you'll always have as part of your armory ready to go when someone asks the question, who are you? The fourth thing, know that other voices exist. Now, if you've been a part of the debates and discussions today, then I'm sure yesterday, I'm sure you already know this, but there is no one singular voice and no one singular true voice that's correct. There's always the opportunity to challenge. There's always the opportunity to debate. But as Mr. Shiraz told us earlier, there's always the opportunity to coordinate across these different voices. So make sure that you not only hear people out, but are willing to take a step forward from where you stand to meet other people, understand their perspectives, understand what they're trying to tell you, and make decisions from there. If more of us just took the time to listen, the world would be a far better place. And 5, be relentless, don't stop. Whether it be applying to internships, everyone sees rejections, everyone sees failures, but take the no to mean next opportunity, not no, this isn't going to work out. Life is like boxing. You're only really losing if you refuse to get up again. So just make sure that you're being relentless, constantly asking questions, constantly engaging in the discussion, And if they don't give you a seat at the table, as Coco Chanel iconically said, bring a folding chair, because the conversations need to keep happening. And I'll leave you with those thoughts and I'll let you continue, but make sure that when we close this Zoom call today, you don't close these conversations. Thank you so much.